Okay, we are recording. Just to review, Monday, 1 hour into class on Monday, we are going to have Aaron Staton come and talk to our class. And I think that will be pretty, I think you guys will think it's pretty cool. He is very entertaining, and he has hit it out of the park as far as success goes. So I'm looking forward to him next week. I think this will do it for PHP tonight. We might review a little bit on Monday. And then I'm going to start talking about bash scripting and bash script programming. And I'm going to do that on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I don't think we'll need to meet on Thursday. I did send Anna Cash, the new instructor, invite for Wednesday of next week so that you guys can meet her and get to know her a little bit. So that is all I have for review. Tonight, I don't think it's going to be super long, but I'm going to talk about forms and how we do get and posts for web pages. And then I'm going to bring up my VM and show you what it looks like and how it works. Okay. Oh, one last thing. I talked about this before I started recording. It turned out that I had the answers posted in Blackboard. I don't know how many of you noticed that, but in week 3, I had the code and everything already posted. So I didn't think it would be fair to have that sitting out there for 2 weeks. Some people saw it, some people didn't, and some people have an unfair advantage. So I'm going to leave it up, but just so that it makes it harder than copy and paste, I added a new field. So instead of the 3 fields of name, email, and message, you have to have name, email, message, and a phone number submitted back to the database. And so that way, at least you got to do some thinking to make it all work. All right, so tonight we are going to talk about more about PHP. We're going to talk about how PHP talks to a database, and we're going to talk about how this whole submitting input to a web page works. Okay, so forms are how we send input. So when you see a page that says fill this out, and you fill it out and you click submit, forms are what is behind the scenes taking that input and sending it to a web server. Okay, so we're going to talk about building forms and how to capture data with a form in PHP. Most of us have seen this before. A form is an input text box. It might be a checkbox on a website. It might be a radio button, yes, no, with the little circles, and you can pick one of them. And there's usually a button that says submit or continue or next or something like that, right? Okay. Behind the form are things called fields. So let's take a look at this. You can ignore Dreamweaver. This slide deals with a type of programming language called Dreamweaver, but it applies to everything, not just Dreamweaver. Okay, so if you looked at the HTML behind a form, you would see something like less than tag, form method equals, and it's either going to be a post or a get. Usually it's post, and I'll explain the difference in a little bit. And then the action. And the action is when you click the button, what answers on the web server to take that input. So the action is what answers on the web server to take the input, whether it's a checkbox, a radio button, or you filled in some text fields, that it's listening and accepting that input. It's a web page. It's a web page. Okay. And then, of course, you got your close form, here. So remember a second ago, I said you can do a get or a post. So let's talk about, first, let's talk about a post, and then we'll talk about a get. Let me kind of give you a sneak hint. When you do a get, it actually passes the value on a URL. So let me show you what I mean. So here is a web page. And if we go to cwi.edu, and here's a search thing. Okay, so this is an input. What is behind this search box? It's a form. if you view the HTML, let's see if hopefully I don't prove myself wrong. View source. Was there not a view source here? Let me look.
It's on the bottom.
There it is. Okay, so if I search this page for the word form, boom, 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 boom. Let me do form equals. Nope. Lots of performance. It might be done with a JavaScript too. Okay, well, it's not going to be a good example, so I'm not going to use that example. But behind this, anything that takes an input usually has a form behind it, and you can do it with like JavaScript and stuff, but we're not going to worry about that.
If you right-click that and just click inspect at the bottom, it should jump right to that spot in the code.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, it's right there.
I think what happened is there's frames, and I was in the wrong frame. Frames are kind of like 2 pages in one, and if you view source on one frame, you don't see what's on the other. So here it is. Form. Whoop. Scooch this over. Here we go. Close that. Do this again. Inspect. Okay. So here is the form right here. Form action equals search.cwi.u/s/search.html. And this is using a get method. This is using a get method. So what a get method is it sticks arguments on the end of a URL. So you could say arg1, or you could say search text equals, this is the search text. So this is what it would look like. And then you can say, and search 2, if there was 2 boxes, equals blah, like that. When you do a get, it's actually stringing it onto the URL. That is a security concern because it's a lot easier to see what's in that URL than it is when you do a post. Okay, so get strings it in here, kind of on the end of the URL, and a post sends it directly to the page. Okay, so this example, what is this exclamation point? What is that?
Not.
No.
It's a comment.
It is a not if we were doing programming, but this is HTML. It's an HTML comment.
Okay.
Okay, so exclamation point, this is actually 2 dashes, exclamation point, that dash, 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 greater than. This is an HTML comment. It doesn't display anything. It's just for people who are looking at the HTML to remind themselves of something. Okay, so here is our form, our HTML form command. The method is post, not get, meaning the values that you submit are posted directly to the answering page. It's not strung into the URL on the top. And there's 2 input boxes. One input box is text, which you see right here, it says name. And the other input box is type submit. And the name is do what, and you give it a name. It's not, doesn't show up here, but that is the name. It's like a name value pair when it gets posted. And we'll look at some code and you'll see that here in a little bit. And the value is send the data. So this is an input field, and actually the continue button's an input field as well. Okay. And then you got your close form there. Okay. So how do we catch this data? How do we catch this data? Well, on the server, whatever the action is, here the form is saying post, and the action is ex1 capture.php. So this is a relative URL. It doesn't say http://www, right? It's just the page. So it's going to submit it back to the same web server, and it's going to send the input to this PHP page. And then the PHP page has programming in it that is used to capture that input. So here is the contents of an HTML page. It's just a form submittal. Here is our PHP that's also on the server, a separate file, ends in .php. And what do we think when we see less than question mark PHP? What does that tell us?
PHP script.
Yes, it's code. This is the beginning of our section that is programming. Okay, so there is not a whole lot of HTML here. It is all code, and the code says first name equals $_post first name. Okay, this is the nomenclature. When you have a PHP page capturing input, there's this $_post is a built-in thing into PHP that says, if I'm processing input from a form, this is how you get those values back and add them into a variable, is the $_post. That is for a post. It's not for a get. So keep that in mind. If your post type here is post, then this is how you access it, $_post. And this title or variable name in here should match what you gave the input name as. So our form, he named this input field first name. And that's how we know what to pull out when the response is sent back to the server, okay? So it says first name is the post variable first name, and it just prints back to the screen with no HTML tag. It would just be printing text. The dude's first name is first name, and then it does a line feed, which is a BR is a line feed in HTML. And then it does post do what, and the second thing is a submit button, and the value is send the data, and it says the button clicked equals string button, and that would probably be do what is the name of the button, not the value, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Oh, send the data. Okay, so they said send button right here. Sorry, $button is the post do what. The post do what has a value set in the form called send the data. By the way, most people don't give a value to a submit button. They do sometimes to check if it was clicked or something, but in general, you don't have to do that. But they're just saying the button clicked equals send the data, which really, that's not really input. That's just them clicking the button. Okay. So the way it works is I, the user, and I'm going to show you an example in a virtual machine tonight. So we're going to get to see this work. The user views the page. He sees the form. He fills out the form. He clicks the button. The action says what page that input's going to go to. The page then answers on the server, processes the input, and usually sends some HTML back to the user. Maybe it will say, I got your message, or submission received, or something like that, to let the user know that when they click the button, something happened. Okay. Let's see here. Please examine the text file. We're going to skip that. How to make the programmer play. Another way to mix HTML and PHP. You can see the design view. Don't worry about it. If I'm inside or outside PHP at this point, don't worry about that. Okay, here's another example. Okay, what does this less than $PHP tell us? It tells us we're looking at PHP code, right? And there's a remark. So by the way, in HTML, a comment is less than, exclamation point, dash, dash, and then dash, dash, greater than, closes it. In a programming language, most programming code, a number sign is a remark or a comment, and it does not get executed. It's just there to tell the programmer something. So we're inside the code because of this tag. There is a coding comment that says part 1, producing the form. So this page is going to do two things. It's going to give the user input. It's going to show them a page, and it's probably going to take that input back. Okay. So the PHP file is called ex6.lolly.php, and the form method is post. No action. If we don't give it an action, it submits it back to itself. If you have a PHP and somebody fills it out and clicks submit, if you don't provide that action field, it will try to submit the content back to the same page that it was on. Okay, so it's kind of an inferred thing. So it's going to print this HTML input checkbox sale 1 equals 1, luscious pop 10 cents, 5 cents. So this is text that it's printing with a line feed. Another input type. So there's a checkbox here for luscious lollipop. There's a checkbox here if you're a senior citizen, and there's a submit. There's a submit button that has a value of continue. Okay, so same page. Remember, we didn't say action, so it's not calling to a new page. It's calling back to itself, the ex example6.lolly.php. And it has a second part that says, okay, I'm going to take this sale1 variable and I'm going to assign whatever was submitted in sale1 to that variable. And then whatever was submitted for senior citizen, it's going to go into senior citizen. These were both checkboxes. These were both checkboxes. And so it's going to see if that variable is set. In other words, did they check that checkbox? And then if they did check the box saying they wanted a lollipop, they got to see if they're a senior citizen. So nested inside of this if statement, they're going to see, okay, yes, they checked that they want to buy a lollipop. Did they check that they're a senior citizen? If yes, you print your lollipop will cost 5 cents. If they did check they want to buy, but they didn't check they're a senior citizen, it will say the lollipop costs 10 cents. So in other words, senior citizens get it for half price. And if they didn't check they want to buy a lollipop button, it's going to print, you did not buy anything. Try it again, or something like that. Okay, so that is it for the slide set. The best way to show this stuff is to actually go through an example. So I'm going to show you an example. It comes right off our Blackboard page. And we will also do, what we'll do on Monday is making sure everybody's PHP and everything's working. And we can do a little bit of that after class tonight too, since we're making such good time. Okay, so I got 2 files. How do I list the contents of a file? How do I see what text is inside a file? What's the command?
Cat.
Cat. And how do I see what files I have in this directory?
LS or LL.
Yeah, if you've created a shortcut, you can do LL. Otherwise, you got to do LS-L. So I have some pages. And by the way, remember the root, by default, the root for your web server is var www.html. The root for your web server by default for Apache is var www.html. So I have some pages in here. I'm going to cat contact.html. And here is the contents of this file. It says HTML. There's my body. I skipped the header. It's not mandatory. You don't have to have a header. And then I have a form, and the action isn't calling back to itself. It's calling back to contact submit.php. We'll look at that in a second. The method is a post, not a get. It's a post. Okay. My form says name, and then it has an input box for text. And then I have a field for email with an input box text. And I have an input box called a text area for message, because a message is longer. It's not like 10 characters or 20 characters. It can be like 500 characters. So let's see what this looks like. Let's see what this HTML page looks like. And this is what it looks like. I went to localhost/content.html, and I got my input box here, my email there, and my message here. This into your message. This is my message. Name is Troy. Email is Troy Taylor at cwi.edu. And then I'm going to click query. Now, I believe this is going to break, and I'll explain why. Okay. It did break. It didn't print anything back because I'm missing some stuff. So let me go to the other half. Okay, so we have the thing that shows our form, right? It's the form with the text areas and the text boxes. And that calls what? contact us, contact submit.php. So I'm going to look at the contents of that. Contact submit.php. And here is the contents of this file. So here's my PHP tag. So I'm in programming mode right now. And I am taking some values. So this first line, what do you think this first line does for us? What does this first line do for us? Wow, it said name equal to email equal to gender equal to comment. What the heck is this doing?
It creates all those variables and sets them to empty.
Yes, is what's called the dimension or an initialization of the variable. We are creating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 variables and setting them to quote, which is empty string. So we're creating 5 variable strings. Okay, now we're going to assign some stuff for us to talk to our database. Stuff for us to talk to our database. So the server name we're running MySQL, so our server name is localhost, so it's going to talk to itself, this machine. The username is not going to be T-Taylor. I'm going to make it root. Whoop, I got to vi it, sorry. Not cat, I'm going to vi. You can be free to use whatever editor you want. I'm going to vi it. I love the color. Colorful, colorful. Okay, so I'm not going to use T-Taylor. I'm going to use root. And right now I didn't set my password. I didn't change it, so it's nothing, but I'm going to leave that for now. And okay, what do you think we should put for database? Do I have a database yet for this? Waiting for it? No, I don't. So sneak peek, let's stop. And I'm going to say the database we'll call it contact, and I'm going to save this file. Then I'm going to jump into MySQL, and you should all know how to do this now. How do I create a new database?
Create database, contact, and
Yep.
the oh.
Okay. All right. Now, how do I connect to that database?
Use contact.
Yes. I'm going to open a second window here real quick. That way I don't got to keep jumping back and forth. Okay, so that's there. So I'm going to use contact. So now I'm connected to that database. Now I'm going to go to my second terminal window that I just opened. And I'm going to go to my root for my web server. And I'm going to contact submit.php. Okay, so let me make this a little bigger here. My wife just got home.
Let's see, if you do side by side, it's still big enough. We can read it,
Yeah,
like two
I
side by
misclicked.
sides.
I just misclicked. Hang on. Okay. All right. So database name. Okay. So I'm going to look here. I have some SQL code. Insert into contacts. What is this contacts? What is that? You know how to read SQL. What is this doing?
Adding a record on that table.
Yes. So this code tells us what should our table name be.
Contacts.
Contacts with an S.
Right. Okay. And I am doing 3 variables. I'm doing name, I'm doing email, and I'm doing a text area. Okay. So let's create a table. So I'm going to create table contacts. Oh, and then let me grab 1 second. Let me come over here. I'm just going to grab a table format really quickly, so I don't got to type it all from scratch. back here. Two. Where's my table? There we go. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to doctor it because it's easier this way. Paste clipboard. Okay. So I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to there. I don't think I did show tables. I think I had an error, so I didn't create it. Oh, okay. I got to remove it. Drop table. I screwed it up. Contacts. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just open up a notepad. And I'm going to create my table here and then paste it in. Okay. So create table. Contacts. So let's see, let's create a primary key and we'll call it contact ID. It's an integer, unsigned, not null, auto increment. So every message will have its own record that auto increments, and that will be our primary key. So contact ID is going to come down here, and that's going to be our primary key. Boom. And I'm going to keep the unique email, and I am going to have a name. Okay, so now we got we got a contact ID, first name, email. We don't have a hire date. We're going to have a message like that. First name, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so the question is our name broken up into two or is it one? I don't remember. Let me go look. All right, what's going on here? Why can't I click? Wake up, you silken monster. Wow, what the heck's going on? Okay, so name is all one field. Name is all one field. Okay. So we don't have a first name and a last name. We just have a name. So we're going to do this. Name is a varchar 30. What do you think? Is 30 big enough for a first and a last name, or should we make it a little bigger? Let's make it 50 in case somebody has a big, long name. Okay, so we're going to create a contact, a name, email, and a message. And we're going to index the name so we can search on it really fast if we needed to, and we're going to make the email unique. Okay, so here's our contacts table. I'm going to copy
Hey,
it.
Troy,
Yes.
in your index it has L name. I think you just want
Oh,
name.
good catch. Good
Yep.
catch. Good catch. That would have errored. Okay. Copy this. We're going to come back here and why those clicks aren't working. All right. Let's go like this. Use contacts. Sorry. We're going to create a table now. So I'm going to paste clipboard. And there's our table. We're going to create a table called contacts in our database called contact. We're going to create a field for a column, also known as an attribute for name, email, and message. Name, email, and message. And we're going to create a primary key on our contact ID. We're going to index the name, and we're going to make email unique. Okay. So how do I see the schema of this table I just created?
Just show table or describe.
Okay. Yes, show table shows the table name. Describe shows the stuff about the table. And there is our field. There is our table. Okay.
Hey, Troy,
Yes, go ahead.
what does having the unique email field in there do?
and won't allow people, actually, that's probably bad because you want people to submit multiple messages, and only allowing the same email once would mean that if they tried to send another message with the same email, it would error. So I actually need to drop this and recreate it.
No, they said their piece. They don't need to say it again.
Yeah. So we're going to drop contacts, drop table contacts, sorry. Okay, show tables, it should be gone. I'm going to doctor this one more time, and I'm not going to have a unique email. Let me do this again. Does that make sense why we don't want to do that? Okay. Tables, there it is. Look at the thing, good. We have an index field named name. We have a contact ID, which is our primary key. Okay, that all is good. Our database is ready. Our table's ready with the fields that we're going to save the values in. I'm going to exit from this, and we're going to cat the contact submit again. Okay, so now let's look at the rest of this code. The server we're going to talk to is called localhost, which is the same server we're running this PHP script on. We're going to use the root user without a password because we're really bad security people and we have a root user with no password right now. Production environment, you never do that, right? Okay. The database name is contact. And this next line of code here is how we have our, it's the connection string for how we're going to connect to the database. There is something built into PHP that already knows how to talk to MySQL as long as it's installed correctly. And we'll probably, that's what we'll work on Monday, is getting this working for everybody. Well, we can work on it a little bit tonight too. So the string is string con equals new MySQL I or interface to the server name with this username, this password, and this database. And then you do if the connection is an error. So this says, try to connect to the database. If you can't, die and report an error message that you can't connect to the database. Otherwise, we're going to go into this next line, and it says, if you have gotten a post back with values, we're going to assign this. We're going to assign name to string name. We're going to assign post email to email, and we're going to assign message to message. We're going to echo back to the user what they submitted. We're going to say, my name is blah, my email is blah, my message is blah. Okay. What is this next thing? What is this next thing right here? And somebody tell me what it is based on our lecture from last night. What is this next chunk after the 3 print lines? And what does it do for us?
That's a function.
It's a function. And what does a function do? Why do we create a function from lecture?
When you don't want to do same thing, or when you want to do something over and over again, but you don't want to type out those 3 lines again and again.
Right. Okay. So look, somebody other than Cameron, look at these 4 lines in our function and take a guess at what this does. Take a look at this. What do you think?
It changes what's in the data variable to avoid anything harmful from being put into the database.
Bingo! It is input validation. So it will defeat an SQL injection attack because it takes out slashes, it takes out special characters. This would be pretty good input validation to keep somebody from doing an SQL injection attack against this form. Remember from our cybersecurity class, SQL injections where you try to trick a page that is backed by a database to dumping a bunch of stuff from the database to you, right? And this function, this test input, looks at the input, tries to take out like SQL injection attacks and stop them from being able to be executed. Okay, good. So that function, okay, so that's a function. It doesn't, by the way, a function doesn't execute until it's called. So these 6 lines right here created the function, but it hasn't done anything yet because we haven't called it. And here is where we call it. Where did we call it? Test input. Oh, right here. Right here, right here, and right here is where, usually, by the way, I put my functions at the top. It still works if they're not. But when these 3 things are called, it will call this function and clean them before it sticks the value in the variable. Okay. So test input is what's stripping out the cross-site scripting type of stuff. Okay, so we printed back to the screen and echoed their input back to them. And we're creating an SQL command. And the SQL command is going to be insert into contacts. What would have happened if I put a single quote here instead of a double quote? What would have happened? If you use a single quote when you're defining a PHP variable, what does it do with the variables? What does it do? Does anybody remember from class?
A single quote's going to spit out that line exactly as you typed it without replacing the variables. A double quote allows you to append at the end of the line the variable.
Correct. And the other thing we got to remember is when you're doing SQL, you're already using single quotes, right? When you're building that insert into, you got to put text values in single quotes. So by using double quotes, number one, it processes this variable and it doesn't collide with the single quotes that we're using inside the double quotes to build our SQL statement. Okay. So what we do is we're going to do SQL. So this is creating a variable that saves this information. Okay. And it says it's going to echo back to the string, the SQL command it built. And then right here, as long as, so you're with the SQL, it's going to issue that query against the database. So it's saying, okay, I have my SQL now, and it's going to say if connection query SQL. So what this means is it's going to use my connection to the database, and it's going to execute this SQL. And as long as that executed okay, it will come back as true. And we're going to echo new record created successfully. New record created successfully. And if it doesn't execute to the database correctly and there's some kind of error, it will say error, and it will report the error string back to the user on the web page. So let's try it now. And then, oh, by the way, always close your database connection. Don't establish a connection to the database and forget to close it, because what will happen is every time the script runs, it adds a new database connection, doesn't close the other one, and pretty soon you get so many connections stacked up that it pukes. So always terminate your connection when you're done with it. Free up those resources. Okay. So let's try this. You ready? Here we go. Why is this not liking me? Let's go like this. It's maximized. Break out of the screen, click back into the screen. All right, I'm going to save the machine state. I'm going to pause and then I'm going to unpause because it's not, my clicking isn't working for some weird reason.
VM workstation.
Right, I'm with you. Unfortunately, that costs money, so.
We pay enough for tuition, they should just give us some licenses.
Right. Okay, so we're going to start this guy back up. Let's see, hopefully this will fix my problem. It is starting up now. Okay. Come on, no whammies, no whammies, no whammies. Anybody remember what game show that's from?
I would be shocked if anyone else can answer this but me.
Oh my gosh, it still didn't work. Oh, there it goes. Okay, it worked. Okay, so here's my form. I filled it out. Still not working. Let's close it. What is going on? Okay, so we're going to do this. We're going to system, scroll up, sys control. I'm just going to make sure enable Apache 2.
So at this point, just do a sudo reboot. It doesn't take very long.
That's what I'm going to do. MySQL reboot. See if this fixes the problem. That was weird. It started when I opened that second text field. Watch it not boot up now,
I say with my luck, that's what's going to happen. This is going to crash on you.
right? That says something very small for my cursor. That always makes me wonder what it says right there.
Did you ever watch that little documentary on the guy that actually cheated the press your luck game?
No.
He could time it perfectly.
So remember the Joker's Wild from way back when? That was when I was a kid. The Joker's Wild was rigged. They gave some of the contestants the questions ahead of time because everybody liked to see, you know how with the game show, Jeopardy, and everybody, when this guy's been on a run and he's won like $1 million, everybody, and the viewership goes up when you have one of these long runs. And so they wanted the game show contestant to have these long runs. And so they would give the guy the questions and he would memorize the answers so that he would have a long run. And the guy who created the Joker's Wild was also, there was an old 50s game show on TV called like the Quiz Show or something like that. And it was also rigged for that same concept. Uh-oh.
That's why I don't watch sports anymore, because I think it's just, yeah, my uncle through marriage, he works, I don't know, he's like a ref in like Texas for football for like high schoolers.
Uh-huh.
And he was saying that ahead of time, you can meet up with the coaches and they basically bribe you. They basically pay you money. And I don't know what he was explaining to me. It seemed really rigged to me.
All right, somebody remind me what the escape key is.
Oh, it's
Great.
Control Alt and VMware, so I don't know.
I know.
Not that little key at the top left corner of your keyboard that says ESC on it.
Isn't it right control?
Right
Yeah, it's
control.
right control.
Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. Okay. Hopefully I didn't just screw the pooch here. There is no. Don't have a CD-ROM in. There we go. Woo! Starting to panic there for a second. Here we go. Let's see what happens. No whammies, no whammies, no whammies. It's looking better. I didn't take my own advice. I didn't do a snapshot. I'm going to message Anna real quick. Come on, you silicon monster. Wonder if this is slowing it down. Let's get rid of that.
So if you want to try a computer reboot, we'll be here.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Push right on one of your arrow keys and it should show what's going on.
So I could do like Alt F1 or F2. That didn't work. What are you saying?
Right arrow key, I think, should show the boot. Should show like the text.
Oh.
Oh.
I hit the right arrow key and it did something.
Usually doing that shows the boot, like it gets rid of the boot screen. Oh yeah, there, I showed it for a second. I saw something.
That's not happy.
What key was that, Zach?
Right
Just
arrow.
key.
There's my Linux viewer. There it is. Yay!
Oh, it was just taking a long time, I think.
It was. I had an SDR radio running in the background, which is pretty CPU intensive. So that might have been what it was. Okay, and then I got to do this every time, and it doesn't remember it from boot to boot. So I got to do Windows key, drag this up, and I got to make it something like this. Keep the configuration closed. Good. All right. There we go. Sudo su minus. All right. So now we're going to open up our web browser. Oh, CPU is getting hammered. CPU is getting hammered. Okay. There she is. It's just laggy. There we go. Okay. So we're going to go to, what did we call the page? Contact.html. Okay. We are also going to make sure that our database is running. How do we check to see if something's running?
System CTL status.
Yep. It's running, so I should be able to do a MySQL contact tables. All right. Okay, here we go. Ready? Troy, message Troy Taylor at cwi.edu. This is my message. Danger. Okay, here we go. Ready? Boom, something happened. Something happened. It didn't work. How can we check this? It didn't work. Okay, so we got to troubleshoot. We got to do some troubleshooting. How can we troubleshoot? When you're troubleshooting something, what's the first step to try to figure out what went wrong?
Turn it off and then on again.
Well, that's to fix it. But to see what went wrong, Apache 2. We're going to look in the log. See if there's an error log. Okay, fatal error. So here it goes. Uncaught MySQL SQL exception. Access denied for user root at localhost. All right. You know what we're going to have to do? You have to, I don't think it will allow the user root to be used. I think it's a safety thing. So we're going to create a new user. Okay, you guys have all done this. Walk me through it. Anybody remember the command? What's the command to add a user? Roughly.
Create user.
Insert into employee. Oh, wait, that's employee.
Yeah. I was like, what are you doing?
Wrong one. Copy the wrong line. Copy. That's not gonna work. Okay. No database selected. I knew that. Now paste. It's this command. Paste clipboard. Create user. The username at localhost. Okay, so I'm going to create Troy. Troy at localhost identified by. Let's go ahead and give it a real password. We're going to give it at PSS0 number 1. Didn't like me. Oh, that's because I got to do use MySQL, I think. It still didn't like me. Let me look. What did I do wrong? Create user Troy at localhost. All right. I think that's right. Does that look right to everybody? What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? Identify create user Troy at localhost identified by password.
Does Troy already exist?
Oh, good call. How can I check? Anybody remember in the MySQL database? How do I figure out what the tables are in the main MySQL database?
Show tables.
Okay. Oh, user table. I bet that's it.
That's
Yeah,
probably more columns than you
bingo.
want.
Yeah, it is a user Troy, but there's no permissions. Look at all these no's after the Troy user. This Troy user doesn't have many permissions, so I'm going to give him everything. Well, I'm going to give him access to this database, not everything.
Say, do you remember the password that you gave Troy?
I hope so.
We'll find out.
Okay, so grant privilege on grant. I think we can do all on contact to Troy at localhost. Okay. Look at my table.
You have to flush, don't you?
Oh, yep. I always can't spell privileges.
It's
there.
Oh. Oh yeah.
Okay, so how can I got to look up how to update my password because I probably don't. MySQL change user password.
You could just hash that password right there.
I could nuke it and then just re-add it, but alter user. Here's the command. Copy. Paste. Alter user. Username at localhost. So it's going to be Troy. Troy at localhost. Identified new user password. Identified by new user password. We're going to give it that super secret PASSW0RD1. Okay. And then we're going to, I'm going to go ahead and grant again. And then we're going to flush the privileges. Okay, now we're going to test it. It was password with a 0-1. All right. So we're going to do this, and we're going to go Troy. And the password was PASSW0RD1. Use. I don't think this will work. Oh, it did. No, it didn't. I could connect the database, but it's showing me no tables because this user only has permissions for which database? Contact. Oh. It did not allow me. It did not. Access denied for user Troy at localhost to database contact. All right. We're going to do something else. We're going to, we got to do grant.
I was going to say the command I used for granting was grant all privileges on. You did it slightly different. I don't know if that's would fix it.
Let's
but-
try it. So let's go to the grant. So you did grant all.
Don't you have to
privileges.
use MySQL?
Uh,
Maybe.
Let's try it. Okay.
So it's grant all privileges on space and then the database.
I forgot the word privileges, I think.
It's weird that they didn't spit out an error.
Right. Privilege.
Yeah, EGES.
Yeah,
On.
word's a pain in the ass.
That should plus your.
Wonder if I can just do that. How do you do all databases? Let me look.
I
Hang on, I will search. The Oracle, ask the Oracle. MySQL, grant all privileges. Okay, to grant all privileges. Grant all privileges on asterisk dot asterisk. Okay, on asterisk dot asterisk to the user, I think, and then flush privileges. And we can actually do this, which will be all types of access, %. So grant all privileges on all databases and all tables to Troy. Well, maybe it needs localhost. Let's try localhost. Yep, there it goes. Okay, so now we got to flush privileges. Okay, and now let's try use contact. Show tables. Select, yeah, it's working. Okay, has everybody followed what we've done so far? I had to create a new user. It was already there, so I had to modify it. Then I had to do this command, and let me put this command into Blackboard so you guys will have it in a second. Oh, I broke out of over there. All right, so let me go to Blackboard, and I want you guys to have these commands in case you got to do this, which you'll probably have to. Move this over, edit. Scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. There we go. Creating a user. Create user, the username at loco divided by grant privilege. We're going to modify this command to be asterisk dot asterisk to the username. Grant, I think it was all, wasn't it? Grant all privileges on asterisk dot asterisk to the username. Okay, got it. So I updated Blackboard. It has the correct commands now to add those users. So now we're going to come back here. So what we did is we looked in that error log, right? So we looked in this error log. We saw, oh, it couldn't, it threw some kind of error. So let's try it again now that we added that user. What do I got to do to my PHP page? I created a new user. Is it going to use that new user yet when it tries to talk to the database? No. What do we got to do? What file do we have to edit? Our PHP that's taking the input. Our PHP. Whoop. That's because I'm not in the right folder. CD. Go. All right. So remember, it's not root anymore. We got to edit this. I created a user called Troy. And what was the password for Troy? It was pass W0RD1, right? Okay, now let's try our page. Okay, submit query. Hey, it worked that time. So the problem was I tried to use root and it doesn't want you using the root user when you're working with a web app. It wants you to create another user. And we shouldn't, you know, for good security, you shouldn't grant all permissions to that user. You should have granted permissions just to contact dot asterisk. So all the tables under the contact database. And that way, if somebody hacked that user, they could only access that one database. But here it echoed back. It said, name is Troy, the email is this, here's the message, and here is the SQL that I was executing. Now, what do you expect we'll find in our table? I don't know.
You signed in as root again. Were you trying to do that? Or
This was just to talk to the database. The user that's used when it's executed is the one in the PHP. So it's saying use this user, et cetera, and so forth. Interesting, it didn't work. So we need to, it did not insert that record. So let's do this. Here's how we could test it. Right? Should be able to run this and it should work. Ah, there's the error. Unknown column message. What did I name my, how do I look at the structure of my table? I do a describe in the table name.
oh, because it's MSG in yours?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly, Braden. I called the name of it when I created the table MSG, not message. So we got to exit out of here. We got to edit our contact and we got to edit the command. And the field wasn't called message. It was called MSG. Does that make sense to everybody why that didn't work and what I had to change? Everybody following? Okay, so let's try it one more time. And that's how I figured it out. I just took the command that it was going to run. I ran it by hand and I saw the error message. I was like, oh, there's the problem. So let's try this again. Here we go. Boom. And this time it told me new record created successfully. So it did not puke. And now if I go back into my database,
You don't have to exit the database, right? To when a record's created.
No.
Okay.
and there it is. There is the contact was stored in our database. Okay. So you guys want to play with it. What you could do from a security standpoint is you could go into Kali and try to SQL inject your own page and see if your little function that filters that protects you or not. I'm not going to get into how to do that. That will be up to you to figure out on your own if you want to play with that. But so now we've seen how to create a HTML page with a form, and that is in Blackboard. We've seen how to create the page that answers in PHP. We knew already how to create a database, a table with columns, and then we had to make sure that the column names matched what our SQL statement in our PHP said. So if we look one last time at this PHP, what we had to do is make sure that this command we're going to execute matched. So we build the SQL command, but it's not run until right here. When you build the SQL command, it doesn't run it. It's this connection arrow 2 that runs it. Okay. So now that we're done with this, if you guys have your VM running, run this command, php-v, and tell me if you get anything back. I don't know if PHP is installed by default or not.
Yeah, PHP 8.1.2.
Excellent, and that will work. It's a little older than my 8.1.5, but that is perfectly fine.
I'm on 8.1.5, so I bet Roger, you just need to update.
Okay. So anybody get an error back or not get a version back on PHP? So it must be installed by default in Kali. Or Apache 2 installs it by default or something. Okay, if anybody does not have PHP running, let me know. And we can troubleshoot in the next class. But you have everything now. You can create your HTML, you can create your PHP, you can open a browser, you can go to your own page, and you can submit, and it should get new record created successfully. And we echo back this. Normally on a production site, you wouldn't ever echo back the SQL you're trying to execute. That's not good. But for the purpose of the class, that we know if it's working or not, that is fine. And this is everything you need to complete the half of the assignment for next week, the PHP forms assignment. And we also will have an assignment for bash scripting, which we'll talk about next week. Okay, so you guys will be able to create your first database-backed coding PHP page that takes input from a form and does something to a database. You can now save stuff in a database. This is the fundamentals of web programming right here. Everything you'd see, all the fancy stuff, it's all prettied up and stuff, but behind the scenes, it's these same concepts. You're taking inputs, you're doing stuff to them, you're saving it in the database. Okay. All right. Don't forget, you got to create the database, you got to create the user, you got to make sure the passwords match, make sure the headings, the columns, the match what you're building your SQL statement in your PHP. Okay. This isn't due. If this assignment is not due this Sunday, if you want to turn it in this Sunday, more power to you. But you really have a little over a week to get this one done. It will be due the same time as the bash scripts. Zach, what's your availability if they get stuck on anything?
I'm available all weekend.
Okay, so reach out to Zach if you're struggling, you can't get your PHP to work. If Zach can't help you, he'll reach out to me and we'll take a look at it. But since this isn't due for a week, we probably, if you work with Zach over the weekend, you can't get it to work, we'll probably look at it after class on Monday or something and troubleshoot any issues you're having. What do you think? How many here, honestly, don't blow smoke up my ass, how many here people think this is kind of cool, working with a database? And okay, how many think it's cool, but I'm more interested in learning how to hack this shit than to do the databases? Okay, the reason we teach you this is so that when you go to do an SQL injection, you understand. And there's some cool stuff out there. I think Hack the Box has some examples of boxes that are poorly protected, and you can go and issue an SQL injection attack and get it to echo back the entire contents. You can suck an entire database out through a web page using SQL injection if it's not protected against it. So entire databases have been lost via SQL injection attacks. So that is, we've mentioned how to do it. Remember talking about terminating single quotes and then injecting your own stuff onto the end of the input. But it's going to be covered in more detail in the Certified Ethical Hacking class, which is next. That is the first class in the fall. I wish I was teaching you guys that class. That one's a fun class. It's pretty fun. I don't know how she's going to do it. The way I did it, the first year we had like server blades and everybody was assigned an environment that they could play in. Last year, my last class, I had them create an internal only network in VirtualBox, and they created two machines, one they were attacking and one with Kali. and connected them together, but it couldn't see the internet so that they wouldn't, accidentally launch attacks on the internet. And they just used their home network to do their testing and pen testing and stuff. I don't know. I'll let Anna will know that she has access to resources at the school for doing that lab. I don't know how she's going to approach it. There's also there's test out. The same guys that your guys' Linux class, the test out, also has a pen testing certified ethical act, and you have live labs and computers that you can log into and do hacking. So I don't know if she's going to go the test out route. The first time around, she may not build it from scratch. She might use test out's environment, but that will be her decision. But Callie is really the name of the game when it comes to that certified ethical hacking class. Okay, so that is everything you need to do your PHP backed web form and save it in the database. So any questions about any of that? Okay, let me stop recording.